So welcome to this little mini workshop on believing in yourself. And I'm really excited about this because I want to really give you a real sense of not only the key steps in believing in yourself, but also how it works as a deep process over a period of time. So I want to do something that's really a great as an introduction, but also really shows some of the key aspects for the people who are more experienced. And so I'm just really excited to have you here today. And of course, this session runs until 6 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. to 6:45, we have a question and answer session on tools for personal transformation, life talent level 1. So it's great to have you here. And I really want to see if we can't touch a belief that needs to be transformed in each of you during the course of the 2 hours today, to bring some healing, to bring some empowerment or transformational empowerment to any disempowering belief that you have that could be transformed into an empowering belief, that could become an empowering belief. And the first step in the process always is to welcome whatever is, to welcome how things are, because every single person on the planet today has been brought up, or perhaps not every single person, most of the people on the planet today have been brought up in a family environment that hasn't always been good for their self-esteem and their sense of self-empowerment, partly to do with the way we organize our societies, but also to do with sort of old-fashioned thoughts about how child rearing takes place and how best to educate children. And I would say that very, very few people have a fully empowering childhood. And therefore we end up even quite subtly having disempowering beliefs about ourselves. And I'll talk about that during the course of the session. So the starting point is that you know that you have some disempowering belief about yourself because it gets touched or activated by some situation. Certain situations touch you in a way where you get quite upset, overly upset. Perhaps you start to behave in a way that you wish you hadn't behaved later. You may go very noisy, or you may go very quiet, or you walk away from a situation, or you start to behave in a way that doesn't feel empowered, but feels disempowered. So that's one of the ways that you know that you have a disempowering belief about yourself. And the disempowering beliefs are, I'm not good enough is a great one. People, a lot of people have that. I'm not lovable. I'm always the outsider. Relationships won't last. I'm stupid. I'm not competent. I will never quite get what it is I want in life. Those are the sorts of disempowering beliefs that have a major impact on us. And certain situations trigger those beliefs. For example, for me, one of the ones that I think I've talked about quite a lot, but I always find it quite amusing now, which is that my mother was bullied as a child by both her father and her brother. And she swore to herself that she would never let her daughters get bullied. So at any time I did anything, used any power game or anything like that with my 2 sisters who were younger than me, she took their side, even if I was in the right. So I noticed it when I was doing lots of coaching in organizations, that if 2 women, very often HR women, but 2 women started talking about me behind my back or were being critical about me, I would have a sort of catastrophic sense of something really awful was going to happen that was totally out of proportion to the conversation. And so what are those things in your life that trigger you into your insecurity, your fear, sort of too much anger, too much sadness, or some people shut down and freeze, a sort of trauma type of response. or people, leave the situation. Sometimes people even run away from situations or get up and leave very quickly because something from the past has really been triggered. So that's one way to know, to identify a disempowering belief, because there's something that triggers you into disempowering behavior. Another way is that you may already know at a quite conscious level that, oh, sometimes I don't feel good enough about myself, or I think I'm second best, or I never quite get what I want, or I never get seen, or I never get paid attention to. You may already know what it is that disempowers you. It's really useful at a cognitive level to know what triggers you and where it comes from in the past, because that will then help you at a body level and a somatic level. You can use the conscious mind to bring healing to the somatic and the body. So it's quite useful at a cognitive level. The problem with at a cognitive level is that it doesn't heal it for you. If you just know it with your conscious mind, that isn't really going to heal it for you. Although there is a CBT method, which is about disputing the negative belief and saying, well, of course this isn't true. Of course I'm lovable. I know people who love me. And that is quite useful, but I don't think it's the best method for changing a disempowering belief. It needs to happen more at an emotional level or at a somatic level. So something happens and a disempowering belief comes up. People don't like me, or I'm stupid, or I'm not good enough, or I'm an outsider, or it could be beliefs about the world as well. The world's a dangerous place, or if I raise my voice, I will get into trouble. It could be beliefs, all men are, nasty people. I was going to use a swear word, or all women are ... or, there may be a belief that's a generalization about the world that doesn't support you and doesn't empower you. And so that comes up, that's triggered. And what you want to do is you want to have really a lot of curiosity. You want to welcome it. You want to say, oh, this is interesting. I wonder where this came from. You welcome it, but don't identify with it too much. So you want to welcome it, but you want to look at it from a distance and say, where did this come from in my childhood? Where did this come from it could be for mostly it's from the childhood. Sometimes people say, oh, it was the divorce when my husband cheated on me when I was pregnant, or, that disempowered me. But usually there's some previous hook to something earlier in life. There's something that's built on. So it's always good to look back and say, where are the earliest times that I got disempowering messages from the world, or things happened that made me feel, disempowered by the world. And there are two sorts. There are sort of major traumatic incidents. One man abused me, therefore all men are dangerous, for example, or the sort of complex, repeated type of events where somebody just puts you down, a parent, or a parental figure or a teacher just puts you down a little bit, puts you over a long period of time, and it becomes accumulative. And actually, in some ways, that is harder to heal than the one-off learning type of experience, because then it's got very, very ingrained in all sorts of different places in your life. And it doesn't have to be words. It could be, my mother was an absent mother. Babies need mothering, kids need mothering. When you're in the womb, you and your mother are one. And at some point, who knows whether it's in the womb or out of the womb, probably in the womb, there may be some research on this, you begin to recognize that you're separate, that you have a separate identity. And you definitely recognize that when you come out of the womb, but you don't want to for that to happen too quickly. It's much better when it's a gradual recognition, because if I and my mother are one and then my mother disappears, then I disappear too. You fall into this void. And that's the experience of, babies who get left alone for too long. Perhaps I don't exist. There was this oneness, that oneness doesn't exist. So, those early life experiences can be incredibly powerful when the adult around may not even know that, having left the room for half an hour when you really were in need of something, that would have had such a big impact. So it could be those, or the person who doesn't make the parent who doesn't make contact, who doesn't answer your questions, who isn't emotionally available. Any of those things will do it, as well as the father, who makes sexist remarks, or the mother who it could be father, mother, or father who just is always telling you got it wrong. The parent, when you come in and say, look, I got B in my exam, and they say, why didn't you get A? Or even worse, actually, I got A, why didn't you get A plus? And that people used to think that criticizing you was a good way to develop children. And actually, it's not a good way. They don't even use it when they're training police dogs, they don't even use the punishment method. They use the reward method. The behavioral shaping, when you shape the behaviors you want, where you recognize and notice the behaviors you want, is a much better way at developing police dogs or children or any human being, managers. And so the question is, what is it that happened to you? Where did you get your disempowering messages from? And can you track them back? Because in some ways, the earlier in your life that you can find the first of those messages is quite helpful, because a baby's very, very in time, they're very in the moment. So something that you brush off as an adult, it can be a calamity for a small child. And even for a 6 or 7 year old, you stand up in class to read a poem that the teachers ask you to read, and you pronounce a word wrong, and the teacher humiliates you, could stop you presenting to groups for the rest of your life. So those early incidents can have massive effects, unless, of course, the way of, nowadays, hopefully parents will say, hey, how did that feel? What happened? Tell me about it. Oh, you need to cry. Let's cry. So the first step in the healing is to acknowledge what happened, and to allow there to be emotion if there needs to be emotion, but to hold it, not to brush it off. I was trained, I was born in 1955, so 10 years after the Second World War. I was trained, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I was trained to, pick myself up and ignore any woundedness. And that isn't, that can be great if, somebody's a little bit rude, it doesn't touch your core wound, fine, you can brush it off quite quickly. But the big things, the things that touch your core wounds, your sense of identity, they can't be brushed off. You have to welcome them first, to get them and to say, that's what happened. And here I am, I'm 67, and it's taken me all these years to discover, to start to address this. And God, I wish I'd discovered this and addressed it earlier. But you haven't, that's the way of life. Sometimes it just takes half a lifetime, 3/4 of a lifetime, to start to address the issues that would have been great if we'd addressed when we were 30 or 20. So that's par for the course. But to get some sense of what it was that, what the trigger is, what sort of behaviors trigger you, what is it that happens that makes you feel that way currently in life, and then what's the disempowering belief or attitude that you get, and then beginning to have a sense of kindness and compassion for where you learned that in your earlier life, whether it was through a one-time learning or multiple times, whether it was all in your childhood or whether there were some adult events. What happens is if there's a sort of psychological weakness, if there's a disempowering belief from your childhood, one of the things that disempowering beliefs do, all beliefs do actually, but we're talking about disempowering beliefs here, is they look for evidence that it's true. So if you think you're unlovable, that's one of the ones that I had, then I'd go around, I wasn't conscious of this, but I'd be looking for sort of proof of the status quo. You know, it's like, oh, looking for examples of where I'm not being loved, where I'm unlovable, where there's something wrong with me, rather than looking for examples of where people are being kind, where people are loving me. So it's that sort of hypervigilance where you're looking for the bad thing to happen, but because you're looking for the bad thing jumps out at you more strongly than the good things that jump out of you. You know, I've got some, I'm not good enough. When people give me positive feedback, I have to really pay attention and breathe rather than brush it off. Because, you know, positive feedback doesn't fit with my, you know, my old view that, you know, that I'm not good enough. So then I sort of, you know, years ago, I started a practice of somebody's giving me, okay, stop, take a breath, listen, breathe it in, spend some time thinking about it, really make a practice of it, because historically I had always just sort of pushed it away. You know, and the same is thing about, you know, being lovable. And it can get very complex in relationships, because supposing, let's, you know, take for the women, supposing your dad had been pretty mean and nasty and said nasty things, and perhaps even, you know, perhaps even hit you. But there's a part of you that will have loved your dad. So then you've got an association that people who are a bit mean and nasty and perhaps, you know, potential for hitting you are people that you understand and are familiar with and you're attracted to. You know, so you get awful situations where people are attracted to people who are abusive because somehow there's some familiarity of that. And we have to be super compassionate. You know, that's why we get into bad relationships, because somehow there's something that's familiar and attractive from early in life very often. I mean, we don't want to overly simplify. And the same is, you know, for men in relationships. You know, there's a strong, in terms of relationships, there's a stronger pull from the parent of the opposite sex, a stronger sort of influence. So, for example, my mother was ambivalent about having kids. I'm very, you know, I'm in a relationship at the moment, praise be the Lord. But, you know, in my life, I've been very attracted to women who are ambivalent about men. You know, I know that one. There's something I want to connect. You know, if somebody's ambivalent about me, that's a great way to get me to want to connect with them. You know, and then that's very messy in relationships. So we've all got our messy patterns, and they may be quite subtle. Sometimes you don't even know for decades that there's a pattern running because it hasn't been very obvious. And so you just have to be super, super kind with yourself about your own journey. And before we do a little exercise on this, by the way, we're going to have several different exercises and a meditation. I wouldn't dream of doing one of these calls without doing a meditation, because Marina would be really upset with me if I didn't do one. But so we're going to do an exercise, then we're going to do a meditation, and then we're going to do another exercise. But any questions on what I've spoken about so far? Does that all seem clear, or have I missed something? Marina, unmute. Unmute yourself, Marina.
You know, sometimes I've made it as a general statement, so not necessarily about me, but it is me, I suppose. I'll give you an example, because I wrote down quite a few as you were going through it, and some of these I have worked on, but this one about don't rely on anyone, they won't be there for you. Do it yourself.
Yeah. And, so, you know, yeah, that's right. That's a great one, Marina. And the thing is that some of these disempowering beliefs actually have their benefits as well. You know, you are good at taking care of yourself. You're really good at it, but it probably can be a bit lonely. You know, I'm like that. I'm so independent. I'm a bit like I'm in a relationship, all is good, but I'm a bit like the cowboy who goes in and, you know, sorts things out and then rides over the hill whistling and smoking my cigar as I ride away across the hills. I can be a bit like that. You know, you may have some of that too, you know. So it's sort of having some humor, both some humor and some understanding of the benefit, because sometimes the disempowering belief can bring certain benefits, like you're really good at looking after yourself. So you're really good at that. But it's a sad one as well, isn't it?
It links to a lot of the others as well. You know that, well, I was just jotting a few down as you were talking through, you know, your
What's
story.
another one? Yeah.
What's linked? I'll do one that's linked to that. Well, I have to keep everyone happy. I don't know if that is linked to it. You know, like putting on a, yay, keep everyone. It's just to do with my family dynamics, and my stepdad was really jealous of us, and my mum was an actress, so you can imagine what that was like. They're very narcissistic to a point. So you keep your head down, work hard, and keep everyone happy.
And what's the disadvantage of keeping everyone happy?
At that time, well, my happiness wasn't really taken into account, so I didn't really have a voice for myself as much as I would have liked. You know, get my mum on a good day on my own with her, it would be fine.
Also, I'm guessing that you also weren't able to really express your own feelings if they weren't happy feelings.
No, I was ill all the time. I kept getting chronic asthma because I think it was all repressed. You know, I was in flight or freeze a lot of the time, definitely. And so I was constantly ending up in hospital with asthma, and I think that's how it came out. And yeah, so it was sad. And yet my mum was great in lots of other ways. You know, I don't want to put it all in one general statement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's one of the things just to be aware of. I mean, medicine is so bad at this, the body-mind connection, the body-psychology connection. You have to really look outside medicine for that. But you so often see things where there was some sort of repression going on and it comes out in the body, you know. And I don't think you can sort of say, oh, I got cancer, therefore there must be something psychologically wrong. That's going to an extreme. You might have just picked up an environmental toxin, but nevertheless, you can see how illnesses are connected, you know, are both psychological and physical. You can see that. It's worth really paying attention to that in yourself. When I was a kid, I was only allowed to go and sleep in my parents' bed when I was ill. Guess what? When I noticed, quite young actually, in my 20s, that when I hadn't had emotional contact, I would get ill. Once I realized what was going on, I was able to say, hey, I'm just feeling a little bit of something. Let me go and see a friend quick before I have to get really ill, you know. So it's sort of having a real curiosity about, you know, what are the symptoms you get, physical symptoms, and how are they connected to your emotional life? And not using it as something to beat yourself with, you know, using it as something to be curious about. Is there something emotional that I can do that will support me physically? They're only discovering it now. They're doing some trials at the moment at University College Hospital, London, about using probiotics for the gut with people who are depressed. And the hypothesis is that if you have good probiotics if your gut is healthy, you're less prone to depression. So that's a trial that's currently going on, and there's quite a lot of stuff to support it. So they're doing quite a lot more. Anyway, so any other questions from anyone else before we go into a little exercise? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is, just before the exercise, I'm going to do a mini meditation. The reason for doing the mini meditation is I want us to keep resourceful. We're going to talk about some of our triggers in the exercise, and I want us to be pretty resourceful. So it's just going to be a very, very short meditation. So I think, is there anybody here? I think I know almost everybody who's done body-mind. Is there anybody who hasn't done a body-mind meditation before? I think, Tina, you're the only person I don't know. Oh, you haven't? Okay. Bronwyn, great. So have you done, so do you know why, Bronwyn? It's great that you put your hand up. Do you know why we would do a meditation at this point or not? Maybe you don't. You're on mute again.
I would think just to center yourself and allow yourself to think more deeply about what we're
Exactly. So we the education system teaches us to operate from the cognitive mind, the brain, but we're not just a brain, you know, unless you're a scientist, then you might be just a brain. But so we need to actively engage, and that was a joke, a mean joke about scientists, by the way. I mean, you know, there was a scientist who actually said, you know, the body is a vehicle for carrying my brain around, you know. So the point is that we need to engage the body as well when we're doing healing work or resourcing work or any work that is seeking to bring our full potential, because you can't have your full potential without body, emotion, mind, and spirit, basically, without the whole 9 yards. So right now, think of a time when you were really connected with yourself. It could have been, you know, on holiday, you know, you've been lying on the beach reading books for 2 weeks, maybe a long holiday. And, you know, hear the sound of the sea, but it could be any holiday, but hear the sounds, feel how you felt when you were really relaxed, a time when you were really relaxed and connected with yourself. And you could be meditating, walking in the woods, a time in your life when you really felt connected with yourself. And when you find that memory, the important thing is to see what you saw, to hear the sounds that were there at the time, and to feel how that feels in your body. And just to enjoy that feeling. And now, from this place of connection with yourself, think of some figure, perhaps a person, but it could be a pet, or it could be an archetypal force, like a spiritual being. Think of some person who really believes in your potential as a human being and who really cares about you as a human being. It could be someone that you've known for a long time, or it could be someone who you didn't know very well, but there was an interaction in which they just said yes to you. So it's finding a time when someone just said yes to you. Seeing them, hearing them, and feeling how that feels receiving this. And say to them, I want some support to keep me in a good place while I'm bringing some curiosity, some love, some care to a place in myself that has a disempowering belief or is wounded. Can you help me with that? To keep me in an emotionally balanced place while I bring some love and care to a place in myself that had disempowering beliefs or was wounded, that ended up believing something about myself that wasn't helpful or healthy, or something about the world. And if they say, yes, that's great. And if they say, I think you need more, allow another figure to appear, to see, to hear their voice, to feel it. And you can actually have as many figures as you want. Just enough to support you and your heart, your warm, tender heart. Being curious and interested and compassionate about a disempowering belief that you acquired probably long, long ago. You acquired once upon a time. So there's this being able to feel the support of these presences and feel our warm, tender hearts, and at the same time be interested in some disempowered or painful place in ourselves without getting lost in that disempowered or painful place. And so when you're ready, I want you to just gradually return to the room. But staying in a deeply connected state with yourself. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes in groups of 3 and one group of 4. So the question is, so what's the disempowering belief that you have? What's the disempowering belief? Pick one disempowering belief. What triggers that in you? And where does that come from in your personal history? But trying to stay as a loving observer of that feeling rather than just getting lost in it. So you don't, if possible, I mean, it's okay if you get lost in it, but it's more healing if you can bring love and tenderness to that. And then we're going to do something with it to do healing in the next exercise afterwards. We're going to then do a deeper meditation, and then we're going to bring healing to it. So what's the disempowering belief? What triggers it in your life? And where does it come from in your personal history? The group of, actually it's all groups of 3 now, so 7 minutes per round, 21 minutes in total. I'll do the timing starting now. So welcome back, everyone. If you can turn your cameras on, that's always great. I want to take us pretty quickly into the next meditation, where we're going to build the resources and do some of the transformation. And I got some things to say first, but first, are there any questions that you've got? Any burning questions, clarifications, or anything that would be good for me to know or to ask me?
I'm glad you're going on to that next bit, because it felt a bit not nice leaving people hanging with their limiting beliefs, even though we got to the cause. It's like, oh my God, now
yeah, exactly.
Julian to the rescue.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Exactly. So that's what we're going to do next. Yeah.
We seem to have lost Tina. She kind of dropped out. But I hope it wasn't anything I said.
I hope not. Do you think you said something?
No, I was in full flow and she suddenly disappeared.
Well, it may be you can't tell what it was, so let's not assume that it's so. Maybe disempowering belief you have that it's something about you. Anyway, okay, so the reason that we did the first meditation was it's really helpful to have some resources to support us exploring the disempowering beliefs and to really keep us in what's called a coach state, centered, open, aware, and H for holding yourself, or a state of well-being, a state of connection with your resources, so that the you that's a healer, the you that has a wise adult mind, the you that has resources, with the support of me and the group, holds the space for the place in you that's wounded. So that's the healing process, that the therapist or the coach or the group help you learn how to hold for yourself in a positive way the disempowered place. And that's quite difficult because you've got two things going on at one time. You've got the body-mind connection, the resources, the wide, the warm, open heart, everything that's great about you needs to be active while you hold the place in you that's wounded, hurt, disempowered, has disempowering beliefs. I'm of the school that that thinks that it's better to fall sometimes into the disempowerment, into the wounded place, than to never touch it at all. So some schools are so sort of positive, it's like they never go anywhere near the wound because they're so much about staying in the empowered place. So if the way that we need to welcome the disempowerment is by actually feeling it and getting a little bit stuck in it or lost in it, then that's okay. That's just a part of the process. Sometimes we actually really just need to have it out in the open and remember it. Celia, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling? You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'm not feeling all that well at the moment, although I'm really enjoying tonight. This is so lovely. And I'm not at home, and I've had a really shit 24 hours actually, but the group and all we're doing just makes me feel empowered.
Oh,
just to have this
great.
Honesty. Sorry, that's what.
Because I saw the tears in your eyes. Maybe that's you not being well.
It could be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But how are you feeling emotionally?
Emotionally, at the moment, I'm feeling fine, but I'm very up and down, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. By the way,
yeah.
of course, you know what FINE stands for, don't you?
What's that?
Fucked up, insecure, neurotic. I can't remember what the last E is for, but
I use it far too much.
Emotional.
Yeah. Well, that's how we, particularly the British people. I mean, actually Chinese people as well. But we're trained to stay in the fine place. Trained to stay. Everything's okay. Trained to stay in that place. Okay, so now we want to think about, well, is that disempowering belief really, really true about you? Is it really true about you? Is it true beyond a shadow of a doubt? Hopefully the answer is no. If there's some questioning, is it really true that I'm unlovable or not good enough or incompetent or the world's out to get me, or, you know, all men are violent or all women are whatever, you know. Is it really true? And if it's not true, let's start to question it. And then it can be both useful to see what we got. Sometimes it's good to see the positive intention as well. There were tons of things I learned about reaching out to people because I didn't have consistent parenting in my childhood. Sometimes there are benefits, like Marina is, you know, she's very, very independent and self-sufficient. Unfortunately, too independent and self-sufficient. She's sort of said, I think. She can't rely on anybody. But it's good to see that there was some good that came of it, but that it's also that it stops us going forward, that it limits us from going forward. It was also possibly, you know, the old NLP saying that you made the best choice at the time. That assuming that belief was the best choice available to you at that particular time. The thing is that it may not be the best choice anymore. So the question comes, what would be a belief that would work just as well or even better? And going from I'm unlovable to I'm lovable, that's quite a big step. So it's good to have a verb in there, a process in there. I'm learning that I'm lovable. I'm connecting more and more with people who love me. I'm in the process of discovering that I'm enough. I'm learning that the people who I want as friends are the people who care about me and believe in me. So there's putting something about learning or process into it, so that it's not just, you know, I'm not good enough, to I'm great. You know, that's too digital, isn't it? It's great to have a learning process in there. We want a belief that is about collecting new evidence, noticing the people who do love us, people who do care about us. You know, and it may be the case that your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, whoever it is, will never love you the way you want to be loved. That may be the case. You know, there are many, many people where that's true. You will never get what you want from them. But there may be other people in the world who will give you more of what you want. And of course, we also have to remember from the wise adult mind and the warm, tender heart that nobody is ever going to mother me again, you know, fully, or be a full-time mother. You know, I can get a little bit of mothering from my partner. I can get a little bit of mothering from my friends. But, you know, it would be an unhealthy relationship with my partner if I just expected her to mother me all the time. Do you follow? So we're never going to get quite what the child needed, but we can get some of that connection. We can get more of that in our lives. And we can get some mothering and fathering in small amounts from people. You know, who are your friends who you can just say, God, I feel like a kid today, or I feel vulnerable, or I'm in my hurt place. I mean, by and large, one of the ways of getting more connection is, of course, sharing what's going on for you, sharing your heart. So who are the people, you know, if love's the issue, let's just talk about love for a moment. You know, who are the people who, if you shared a bit more of yourself with them, would share a bit more of themselves with you? Who would reciprocate? So it's a process of, so where in my life am I good enough? Where in my life am I safe? How can I lean more into those places? How can I notice being acknowledged? How can I notice the person who cares for me? Because so the belief gets built by finding evidence that supports the new belief. So it's about paying more attention to the evidence that supports the new belief than to the old belief. One of the things with the old belief is that, you know, this is such an important piece, this. Supposing you came from a family background, you know, supposing your father walked out and your mother had to work. She wasn't there for you. And you might, as a baby, have made up belief, come up with a belief that she didn't love you. Whereas actually she loved you by going to work. So sometimes we have to educate, talk to that place in ourselves and say, you know, your father was really stressed at work. It wasn't that there was something wrong with you. There was something wrong with him, you know. So to really support the child and say, actually, you made it mean there was something wrong with you. But actually there was something wrong somewhere else, something that wasn't working elsewhere. So sometimes some of that sort of dialoguing, bringing the adult, the wise adult mind and the warm, tender heart to that place in you and saying, you know, my mother had post-traumatic stress from the Second World War. You know, she loved me by taking us on adventures. She didn't hug us. She didn't have emotional conversation. She worked because she was a feminist and she wanted to continue working after the war. And the way she loved us was by creating fantastic adventures, you know, driving here, there, and everywhere. But it wasn't how I, as a baby, needed to be loved. So it's sort of like the wise adult mind can say to the kid in me, well, there's two things it can say. The first is, you know, your mother was wounded, she was hurt, she was anxious, she was this. It wasn't about you, it was about her, you know. And of course, the baby isn't really going to understand that, but you can bring that feeling. It's bringing the feeling to that place in you. Maybe the 5 or 6-year-old will understand that. And then the other piece is, which is the most important piece of all, actually, which is you say, they weren't there for you. They, you know, you got the feeling that you weren't good enough or smart enough or bright enough or whatever it was enough, or interesting enough from them. But this is the wise adult you, I am here now. I am with you now. And it's probably the case, because we can get disconnected from our wounds, our woundedness, that we haven't been good at holding these places in ourselves. So you may have to say to that part of you, and I know that I've abandoned you. I haven't always been there for you, just the way your mummy and your daddy weren't there for you. But I'm really going to work at it now. I really want to be there for you. I really want to hold you. I really want to give you attention. I really want to bring you love. And I'm learning how to do that. You know, we're learning, all of us are learning how to love and be tender and sweet with these places in ourselves that hurt. Not to run away from them, but to hold them with love. So I want to lead straight into a meditation just because of time, because I want to do another exercise afterwards. And so I'll say more of these things in the meditation itself. So do what's really good for you to get into that body-mind connected state. Another method that many of you know is paying attention to 4 things that you see. So you focus your eyes on a spot in the room in front of you, if your eyes are open. And then you soften your gaze and notice 4 things in your peripheral vision. If your eyes are closed, then you can notice the darkness of your eyelids, the colors on your eyelids. I have more than one color, and I have all sorts of brain noise happening in my eyes, little movements and flashes and things. And then you've got the images in your mind's eye. And then listening Many of you know I like to listen outside the room. Can I hear anything? And even if I can't, the act of listening is a sort of hearing. Can I hear any sounds in the rest of the house? And what can I hear in this room? And what can I hear in my body? And then listening to my internal voice, my internal dialogue from a distance. What's she saying? What's he saying? Is there a feeling connected with that voice? And then 4 feelings. A muscle in your body, a place on your skin, an emotional feeling in the trunk of your body, probably, and one other feeling, anything you like. And then just noticing 3 things you see. And paying attention to your ears. 3 things you hear. And paying attention to your body. 3 new feelings. Two things you see. 2 things you hear. 2 things you feel. One thing you see, 1 thing you hear, 1 thing you feel. Just really paying attention to your senses so that you're not just in your mind, but you're paying attention to your body. You're paying attention to your ears, paying attention to much, much more than what you usually pay attention to. And so before we invited a person or people who believed in you and really had compassion for you. And so connect with them again, or that person again, or that pet again. And perhaps, of course, it was someone you've known for a long time, who you know very well, or someone from the past, or someone you've known for a short amount of time, or a spiritual figure, a higher power. And so my question to him or to her or to them is, what support do I need to help this wounded place in myself understand that that disempowering belief wasn't really true about me? It just seems that way. And begin to explore, might there be something truer about me? Might there be something truer that's possible in my life, more empowering? And the question is, what support do I need? Do I need an archetypal mother like Mother Earth? Or a kind celestial father? Or a big sister? Someone from Marvel Comics? Or that school teacher who just said yes? Or someone from a movie, Galadriel from Lord of the Rings, or Gandalf? Someone from your favorite storybook? Could be figures from history, saints. Who is the person who can teach you to be a great mother or father to yourself? Who is the person who can empower you to be a great mother or father to yourself? To see them, to hear what they would say, to feel their blessing. To bring their blessing into your heart so that you can embody that. So that you can bring that to the younger you, to the earliest age that needs that memory. That needs that dialogue, that feeling, that invitation. That wasn't really true about you. It was true about the world you lived in. There is something that's more true now, that's possible if you only look at it, if you only lean towards it. And what if we leaned towards people who acknowledge us? Lean towards people who care about us. Lean towards people who think we're good enough. Lean towards people who say yes to us. And lean into those places in ourselves that can love ourselves, that can care about ourselves, that believes in us. Those places that can hold us well and kindly when we're mean to ourselves. It's not that we won't ever be mean to ourselves again. It's that let's invite something bigger than that, that says, ah, Julian, you're being mean to yourself. Ah, Marija, Francis, Wendy, Marina, Gordon, Georgianne, Bronwyn, Li Wei, Barbara, Tina. Ah, you're being mean to yourself. Let's bring some tenderness to the one who's mean to yourself. Have a bigger place of empowerment and love with the support of those internal resources that believe in us, support us, to develop our hearts so that we can bring love and understanding to the places that need to look at the world anew and look at ourselves anew, and can also bring love and understanding and presence and witnessing to the places in ourselves that are still mean and disempowering. Or there's that disempowering voice again. I know you. You're from long, long ago. Let me ruffle your hair, but I don't want to believe you. It's like hearing when that old disempowering voice comes saying, hey, welcome, old friend. I just don't believe you anymore. Welcome, old friend. I don't believe you anymore. I'm learning something new. Learning something new. Imagine what it would be like in the future if this new belief really flourished in you. What would you look like, sound like, feel like? What would your life be like? See, feel, hear what your life is going to be like with this new empowering belief, collecting examples that it's true. As Milton Erickson would say, have more of that. Have more of that. Have more of that. And I wonder what practice you'd engage in, perhaps in your daily meditation or taking a few minutes every day to bring your resources, your supporters and your warm, tender heart to the newly budding belief place in you that has a newly budding belief. To take time every day to visit this place in you and support and wonder about and lean into the newly budding belief. I'm just imagining, thinking about how you will do that during the days and weeks that come. Returning to this budding belief, this blossoming plant that just needs the sun of your heart and the water of your soul and some nourishment to grow. When you're ready, I want you to Just stay deeply connected. And begin to come back to the group. And we're going to spend a little bit, very short amount of time in an exercise. 6 minutes per person in the groups of 3. 4 minutes per person in the group of 4. Group of 4 does its timing. Share with each other. What is the new belief that's growing in my heart? What is the new belief that's growing in my heart? 6 minutes per person in the group of 3, 4 minutes per person in the group of 4, starting now. Welcome back. So I'd like to ask everybody, what is one thing that you got, one sentence, one thing that you got from the meditation, and in terms of your empowering belief? What's one thing that you learned and one feeling, but no more than, well, 2 sentences, 1 sentence on each. So let's start with Wendy, and then you can pass it on to someone, Wendy.
I'm learning to feel I belong, and there's a big feeling of gratitude, Julian, from Life Talent 1 and 2 in terms of looking at the wounds in coach state, holding that and using the resources. So much gratitude for all of that.
Thanks so much. That's more than 2 sentences. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's more. Pass it on to someone. Pass it on.
Pass it to Alex.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, I mean, lots and lots, but what I'm with now is that when I notice my feet, I remind myself of my lovability. Yeah, when I feel my feet, I am lovable.
Beautiful. Pass it on.
Pass it to Om.
Chip away slowly at your belief. Chunk it down.
Yeah.
Slowly chip away at the belief.
Now, how are you feeling?
This is-
Second sentence. Second sentence.
Yeah, I feel that little bit chipping has been done.
Great. Pass it on.
Actually, I can't see the names, and so Georgianne.
I'd like to steal when I feel my feet, I'm lovable, but I would say I've done it before, I can do it again. I have a dance, I have a somatic way to connect.
Beautiful. Pass it on.
Oh, Bronwyn.
Okay, I need to believe I'm fine as I am. People love me. I don't need to be slim to be loved.
Great. Beautiful. Pass it on, Bronwyn.
Oh, sorry, Gordon.
Yeah, so I've got that, and it's not that hard to have this new belief that I can do what I want, and I just feel so happy with that revelation. I'll pass it on to Marija.
I learned again how to enjoy my life, and I feel a lot of energy. Thank you.
Beautiful. Pass it on, Marita.
Beg your pardon?
Pass it to someone.
I don't understand.
Okay. Tina.
Thank you. I am enough. And I feel totally blessed by this group, but especially my 2 lovely ladies that I work with. Thank you.
Great.
And on that, I'm going to pass it through to Louis. Sorry, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Louis.
Yes, thank you.
Apologies.
相信自己，然后照顾好自己。我值得拥有被关爱，要慢下来。
Trust in myself, love myself. I need to slow down. I'm worth for it.
对，谢谢朱莉安，谢谢。
Thank you, Julian. Thanks for everyone.
Pass it to Barbara or Francis.
To Barbara.
Okay.
I'm going to start remembering all the stuff I did that was great. And I'm excited because that feels like it'll open the doors to feeling great more of the time. And now Francis.
You have to unmute, Francis.
Sorry. I'm very grateful that I came today, and feel very grateful for being in a group with Wendy and Marija, who I know, and I just really feel a sort of sense of friendship there. And yeah, to lean on people who do believe in in me and
in you,
in me, and that's hard. So it's been great. Thank you very much.
That's so beautiful, Francis. It's so beautiful, Francis. It really is the thing to do, to lean on, to look for and be close to people who believe in you. That is what it's about. And the ones who don't, including family members, you know, spend less time with them. If that's the, you know, you may have relatives who don't nourish you. It's just worth knowing. Don't try, if you've knocked your head on the brick wall, turn away to somebody who's not a brick wall for you. So for those, this is the end of the session, but some people may stay to hear about tools for personal transformation level 1 that's starting on the 2nd of October.
Thank you, Julian.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.